What's up, guys? A new day of war and new update. And we will again talk about Soledar. As you may know, this is the hardest place in the front line right now. Unfortunately, today I found a couple of YouTubers who already shot their video with misinformation about the complete surroundings. And they were using this map as a confirmation of their words. Well, I don't know if this is just a mistake or cunning propaganda, but this map is fake. And I don't even want to give you a link to this map, not to make it free advertising. But if you will look at the sources based on which this map was built, that's all the sources from Russian reporters. Not a single source from Ukrainian or even international reporter. According to the information I have, the current situation in the city looks like this. So Russia controls the most of the city, but not all of it. The main problem for Ukrainian forces right now is that Russia has a firing control over the main exit from the city. But as I said, Russia did not have full control over Soledar, and we have a few fresh videos from Ukrainian soldiers which confirms it. Let me show you these videos. So that's an account which belongs to one of the soldiers who right now is in Soledar and defending the city. And the last message from him was at January 11th at 10 p.m. And he wrote, let me translate, that there is no bad news for Soledar, because they're still fighting, they are not surrounded, and the city is not under full Russian control yet. And here's a video from him which was published on the same day at 11 a.m. In the video you can see how his unit is currently in the city and using a drone to adjust the artillery fire. And that's another soldier who right now is in Soledar, and he wrote a post at January 12th at midnight, and he wrote, let me translate, okay, there are no battalions of the 46th Brigade surrounded, this is Russian fakes, and for sure situation is very hard, communication is practically absent, units fight independently, and we solve all supply problems at the expense of Russia. So they're killing Russian soldiers and they took the ammo if they need it. 2 days ago, the head of the Russian private military campaign wrote a post in which he said that his soldiers had gained full control over the city. But the very next day, even Russian officials in their report said that fighting in Soledar is still going on, and the city is now semi-encircled, not completely surrounded. That was yesterday, and today the same head of Wagner Group wrote a new post and again said that the city is captured. But again, we continue to receive messages from the Ukrainian soldiers saying that they are still in a city and that Russia has not yet taken it completely. For sure, the situation is hard and very likely that tomorrow all of the Ukrainian soldiers will leave Soledar. But there are no fleeing defenders, as Russian propaganda says. Some of these groups cover retreating units, and if the retreat requires 3 days, then soldiers will fight for these 3 days. And you may ask, if Bakhmut and Soledar are not so important, as I said in my previous video, if they're not so important in a strategic way, then why do Ukrainian forces are trying so hard to defend it? And why they just do not retreat from them, as they retreated in the beginning of the war from some other cities? Ukraine has already lured Russians deep into its territory and crushed them there. Why are they not using this tactic now? And here's important to understand one major difference. At the beginning of the war, Russia made a big mistake trying to get to the main Ukrainian cities quickly. It stretched its supply lines too much and Ukraine took advantage of that. So for example, Russia tried to capture Kiev and it failed. It stretched their supply lines here. They're trying to capture Odessa and Mykolaiv. They also stretched their lines here. And Ukraine just bombarded their equipment, their fuel tanks, and Russia lost in that battle. And now the war is going in a completely different manner. Each side is consolidating on its territory as much as possible, building defensive structures and digging trenches all over the front line. If Ukraine now allows Russia to occupy a city, Russia will not leave 500 troops in it to control order and will quickly move on to a new offensive. No, Russia will start moving its weapons deeper, closer, pulling up new reserves and rooting itself in a city as much as possible, announcing to everyone that this is now a Russian city and it always has been. As a confirmation of my words, some satellite images have emerged showing that Russia is now very attentive to supply lines and is trying to place warehouses and air bases in places where Ukrainian artillery cannot reach. So, for example, they had the old air base here in Chaplinka, but after the retreat from Kherson, this becomes reachable to Ukrainian artillery. So here's Chaplinka, and that's a new front line. And total distance is 46 kilometers. In Russia right now building a new air base in Berdyansk. So that's a Berdyansk, and the new distance from the front line is already 100 kilometers. And let me show you how far the HIMARS can shoot. So let's find HIMARS with these types of rockets. And in case of shooting from this distance, HIMARS will not reach Berdyansk. But in case of Chaplinka, for sure, it was reachable. So Russian becomes smarter and we need to deal with it. And last news for today. Unfortunately, this is bad news, but it once again shows how Russian propaganda works. Russian channels published documents of two foreigners, Christopher Matthew Perry and Andrew Tobias Matthew Bagshaw. The occupiers claimed that they found the body of one of them in Soledar and that they were foreign fighters who fought on the side of Ukraine. So these two are real heroes, but they have nothing to do with the military. Both are volunteers who have repeatedly evacuated civilians from Bakhmut and Soledar. They had nothing that would indicate their belonging to armed forces. And that's why we should never believe the statements that come from the Russian side, neither about the territory they control, nor about the fact that they do not kill civilians or volunteers. Ukrainian soldiers are defending their land, and it's very profitable for the Russians to raise the question why they are so fiercely defending Bakhmut, why they do not withdraw from Soledar if the Russians have already entered here. And that's all for today. If you want to support this channel, please leave a comment or give a like or share this video, and live in peace.